Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to more esports news. A very debatable story covering over the past 24 hours, guys. That being rumors of the Chengdu Hunters and apparently half the roster wanting to retire from Overwatch after this season. Now, it was actually brought to us by the Overwatch Beacon. Thanks to them for the great translation, as they were making several points from a Weibo post about the team itself and the roster for the upcoming World Cup alongside them, and that being the Chinese team. But with that being said, one of the points they did make, without too many further details from that same post being translated, was all about apparently 4 to 5 members of that roster wanting to retire after this season. Also did state, of course, during that translation, that it's very stressful to play in the US, no home food or leisure activities, and so 4 to 5 Chengdu players said they wanted to retire after this season, with very few other details. Now, Deserto also covered the article as well with further translations as to potentially other reasons out there, which did state players, according to their coach RUI, did used to go on morning runs as well over in Southern California, and ever since local shooting threats have been occurring, they've been afraid to do that as well. So in terms of leisure activities or side hobbies, or of course just getting outside for once, getting some sun and exercise, apparently they are now afraid to do that. Other rumors out there saying they're also afraid of wolves in Southern California, which Seagull, we're going to show his response, brings up in his post about this. But I think it brings up some great talking points for the future of franchise leagues in terms of burnout, and can these players, especially players that are relocated or forced to travel to places they don't want to go to, can they survive in the upcoming franchise leagues that esports might become surrounded by? So here, first of all, for all of you guys, is Seagull's response, of course, a former retiree from Overwatch League himself. So I like when he speaks about burnout, as well as I'll show you guys some screenshots in a bit here. He talks about the wolf rumors. Alongside that, though, the overall issue of burnout when it comes to professional esports in general.
Dinosaur Resistance Seagull, you might also want to know, apparently Chengdu players aren't allowed to go for morning runs anymore because there are, quote, too many wolves, end quote. There are no wolves in my family grew up in SoCal. There's like coyotes, but that's it. Seeing that post saying like 4 to 5 Chengdu players apparently want to retire or whatever, I feel like a lot of people don't understand what makes playing games on a pro level so exhausting, or like burnout. Well, I guess it's more specifically just Overwatch compared to other games because of how it all works. Like if you think about League of Legends and Dota, they have frequent balance changes, but they only have one map. CSGO does not have frequent game-wide balance changes that completely change everything as frequently as a game like Overwatch does. But at least they do have the same amount of maps as Overwatch. However, they do have a map pick ban system. But Overwatch has the mix of, we have massive game-wide balance changes constantly that fundamentally change the game. And we also do not have map pick ban and a shit ton of maps.
And those are some killer points, especially, of course, I'm not a specialty when it comes to the Overwatch scene, but other esports as well. When you compare the two, it's a tough comparison. I'll put his screenshot on screen, his overall main points he did make a few minutes later as to what exactly makes it so hard to be an Overwatch professional. He didn't even add in all the other things I'm going to talk about in a minute here. When you think about just the meta changes, the big changes in general, that of course across all of those maps, all those different play styles, compositions that Overwatch does undergo on a frequent basis, it's tough to compare it to games like League of Legends, who do, generally some big updates, but they have that one primary map inside their game and that one primary focus inside that same as well, alongside games like Counter-Strike or CSGO, far and few between with those updates. We're lucky to get maybe 2 meta changes an entire year. I would say that's pretty generous, with maybe a new weapon or maybe a big change. There's really no comparison in terms of that to Overwatch. I think Fortnite's a pretty close one, but then you add in the factor of, yes, those players can adapt pretty fast, and it is on, one map. It's an RNG game in itself, so Fortnite may be a liable comparison as well. That's not to mention, though, with this being the most established franchise league out there in terms of traveling as well, these players have to relocate to those franchise cities like the Chengdu Hunters had to do, places that the players might not want to be living permanently in the first place. And on top of that, you add in travel, traveling for home and away matches. It's a pretty crazy, hectic schedule, and especially coming from a guy like Seagull, you understand why we could see this in the future more if all esports try and go towards this franchise route. So whether or not they're afraid of wolves, or other animals or wildlife, or if it is local shootings preventing them from actually getting their exercise each and every morning, you understand the issue these players are going through, especially when it comes down to, like the title says, this might be precedence. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've never covered a story where nearly half a roster wants to retire from an esport just strictly because of they don't like where they are, and you add in all the other factors of being a professional in that esport. Has Overwatch made it almost harder for these players to compete while, trying to benefit them in some way, or at least benefit the esport in some way for the future of its existence with these franchise leagues. I look directly to an example, much like Chengdu Hunters, of Optic moving to LA. These guys now relocate from Texas or wherever they are based. I think currently it was actually formerly Chicago, now in Texas. Now relocate potentially the very few remaining Optic members, and their only one remaining team, that being their Call of Duty team, is now going to be forced to relocate to LA. Will players want to do that? Will Scump want to do that? Will Crim6, people who are well established in their current cities, buying homes, getting engaged of that sorts, will they want to relocate just so their team can succeed in a franchise league in a totally different city? It's a giant question going forward, and I think, again, a great point of debate for all of us to talk about. Now, I hope you guys all enjoy this episode. It's a pretty crazy one, and I think a very debatable topic. As always, going to really enjoy reading your comments because I'm going to the airport. I'm going to be gone all day tomorrow, but I did pre-record content for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have some great videos coming out. If you guys want to come back and see me, though, breaking down esports news, I'd love to see you back here. If you want to stop by again, I'll be back here Monday breaking down tons of esports news, which I am sure we will have. Now, until then, have a safe weekend, guys. Thank you all for all the comments. I think we're going to break 37,000 subscribers as I'm speaking, so thank you all very much, guys. I really do appreciate you. I'll see you back here Monday. Until then, take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon.